Hi team, and welcome back to the Radical Rundown. My name is Bryan Buckosh, core design engineer for Brunswick Bowling, and today we're talking about the newest release in the Radical lineup, the Outer Limits, and the core design that's inside of it. This brand new Outer Limits core shares some extreme similarities to the core design that was in the Trailblazer and the Trailblazer Solid. At first glance, you can see that they share a lot of features that are almost identical, but there are also a lot of nuanced differences in this new Outer Limits core that make it a newer and more improved version of this original Trailblazer core. First, we're going to talk about the similarities of these two cores, starting with the knob on top. As you've heard with the other Radical core designs, the knob on top, or the scoop in some Radical core designs, is built to help maintain the post-drilled total differential of the ball. So, when you drill your fingers into this core, typically in a pin-up layout, in both of these cores, you're going to drill the fingers into the main core body, but miss the knob when you drill into it. When the knob is still there, that means the highest density portion of the core is still there. It maintains its height, and thus it maintains its differential after drilling, as opposed to drilling into the top of the core and hitting it immediately with the fingers in some core designs, in which case you'll lose total differential and flare potential in the post-drilled ball. So with your fingers drilled into the top of the core but missing the knob, and your thumb drilled into the front moment arm of this core, you're going to increase the intermediate differential of both of these cores by drilling into them. You do that by removing the knob mass material, making the core relatively skinnier compared to the height of the core, and what this is going to do is keep the post-drilled intermediate diff higher than the original undrilled ball. In the Outer Limits core design, there's actually a little less asymmetry built into it. This ball starts at an 0.51 total differential with an 0.14 intermediate differential, but in the max flip layout, this ball can go all the way up to an 0.59, 0.26 after drilling. That's actually a lot less asymmetry that's built into this core before and after drilling than the original Trailblazer. The Trailblazer started at 0.52, 0.20 and went up to an 0.62, 0.32 after drilling. But this core was optimized for maximum back-end performance with a little more continuation than the Trailblazer. Even though this Outer Limits core has less intermediate differential before and after drilling, it's going to have a little more continuation on the back of the lane than this original Trailblazer core because we're using a new predictive analysis software program that's going to give us an idea of how this ball back ends and continues at the back of the lane before we even drill it and test it. Now, based on this data, it showed that a little less intermediate diff in this core is going to give us a strong mid-lane and back-end motion without being too jerk-stoppy or too forward off the back of the pattern. The last key feature that these two cores share in common is this boat at the bottom of the core. It concentrates mass under the center of mass of the entire core, and even though it's centered underneath the core in this vertical orientation sitting here on the table, in reality it kind of acts like a moment arm the same way that these knobs do, because when you tilt the core as if it's tilted on its axis, like when the bowler releases it, you'll see that it's at an off-axis orientation, and it's creating instability in the core as it wobbles. This instability actually creates a mass that helps the core rev up to its preferred spin axis, because this instability wants to right itself and stabilize itself faster. So that's going to bring us to the differences between this original Trailblazer core and this new Outer Limits core. Even though all of these features are effectively the same in terms of geometry, the sizes and shapes of them are different in nuanced ways that are going to help this Outer Limits perform a little better as the next-gen version of the original Trailblazer core. So the first thing that you'll notice is the relative height of these two cores sitting on the table. Although their volumes are relatively similar, the height of this Outer Limits core is shorter overall. That allows us to pack even more mass into this bottom boat. And you'll see that when I tip these in any orientation, the size difference between the two boats at the bottom is quite substantial. So this is going to offer more mid-lane response and more back-end motion in this brand new Outer Limits core. Even though this core looks shorter, it actually sits up in the ball a little higher so that the knobs are at an equal distance in the core. So this is more like the orientation in the ball, where the knobs both point to the PSA of the ball. They sit directly under the marked spin axis of the ball, so that way if you pick a long drilling angle layout, such as the max flip layout, in that example a 70-degree drilling angle, then you'll put your thumb right through these moment arms and you're going to get more post-drilled intermediate differential out of them. The other thing that's different about this outer limits core is that we've taken a more elliptical core body in this core and we've compressed it into what looks to be more like a band. What this does is it concentrates more mass in the area of the mass bias, in the area of the PSA spun locator, so that way when you are drilling a strong layout, you're going to get as much core body mass drilled out as possible. What this does when you drill into it is it raises the RG of that axis. So for example, you're going to get more total differential and more intermediate differential because you're replacing the core body mass with air, raising the RG of the axis that you're drilling into. With this new predictive analysis tool, we're able to fine-tune existing core designs to make a new core design that results in improved ball motion and improved back-end performance on the lanes. That's all the information I have on this brand new outer limits core, the natural successor to the Trailblazer core. Join us next time when we're talking about all of the current asymmetrical cores in the Radical lineup. That's it for this Radical Rundown, but in the meantime, make sure you join us on all of our social medias, YouTube and Facebook. And while you're here, make sure you join the conversation on the Radical Fans group on Facebook as well. Once again, I'm Bryan Buckosh, and this has been the Radical Rundown.